Chapter 2, Lesson 5, Comparing Fractions, Decimals, and Percents. When comparing fractions, the first thing you need to do is you need to find a common denominator, and you need to find the least common denominator, the LCD. You want the smallest number both of 8 and 12 go into. So 8 and 12, looking at that, they both go into 24. So we're going to multiply 5 and 8 by 24 by 8 by 3 and get 15 over 24. We're going to multiply 7 and 12 by 2 and get 14 over 24. Now all we need to do is compare the numerators, 15 and 14, and we can see that 15 24ths is bigger than 14 24ths. So 5/8 is greater than 7/12. So let's look at 2/3 and 4/9. I always tell them to look at the denominators and can you make the 3 into a 9? And the answer is yes. All we have to do is multiply 3 times 3 and we get 6/9, and 4/9 stays the same. So we can see that the 6 is bigger than the 4. So 2/3 is greater than 4/9. Now they asked me, can't we just cross multiply? So you could do 3 times 4 is 12, and 9 times 2 is 18. But for Common Core purposes, we need to know how to change the denominator to the same for comparing more than two fractions, which we'll be doing next. So now we have 4 fractions, and we're going to put them in order from least to greatest, from smallest to biggest. Now before we do that, we need to find a common denominator. And doing cross multiplication on these wouldn't work, so that's why they need to know how to find the common denominator for all 4 of the fractions. So looking at 2, 14, 4, and 7, 2 and 4, or 2 and 7 can go into 14, but 4 cannot. So 14 is not going to be a common denominator. Once we look over this, we can tell that 28 will be a common denominator for all 4 fractions. So we multiply this one by 14, 9/14 by 2, 3/4 by 7, and 5/7 by 4. We're going to get 14 over 28, 18 over 28, 21 over 28, and 20 over 28. Now we do what we did before and we look at the numerators, 14, 18, 21, and 20. So the smallest fraction would be 14/28, but they need to put it back in its original form. If they put it in order the way they are here, they will get it wrong. So 14/28 is the smallest fraction, so we're going to change that back to a half. The next smallest would be 18 over 28. We're going to change that back to 9/14. The next smallest fraction is 20, which was 5/7. And then 20 over 28 would be your biggest one. So they must put them back in their original form from least to greatest or greatest to least, depending what they ask, in order to get it correct. Now we're comparing a fraction and a decimal. Now before we do this, we want to change the fraction to a decimal in order to compare it. So 3/4 as a decimal would be 0.75. We'll just bring down the 07, 7/10. And comparing these, we'll look at the numbers. We can add a 0 to the 7. So now I've got 75 and 70. So 75 hundredths is greater than 7 tenths. Now changing 3/4 to a decimal, they should know 3/4 is 0.75 because it takes 4 quarters to make a dollar, and if you only have 3 quarters, then you only have 75 cents. But if they forget, then they need to divide 3 divided by 4. You need to add a decimal. 430 goes 7. 30 minus 28 is 2. Add your 0. And 420 goes 5. Here we have 85% and 7/8. So we're going to change 85%, move the decimal, that's right there, even though you don't see it, move it 2 places to the left. So this is going to be 85 hundredths. And then we're going to divide 7 divided by 8. So we have 8 times 8 is 64. Remainder of 6. Add a 0 and bring it down. 8 into 60 goes 7, which is 56, and 60 minus 56 is 4. Add a 0, bring that down, and 8 into 40 goes 5. So 7/8 as a decimal will be read as 0.875. Now, if we just add a 0 to this one, we can see that 875 is greater than 850. Again, we're just looking at the numbers though. 8 and 8, 5 and 7. So 7 is greater. So 7/8 is 85% is less than 7/8. Let's take a look at some of their homework problems. So number 2, we have 7/12 and a half. 7/12 is fine just the way it is. But we're going to multiply this by 6, so we have a common denominator of 12. So we'll have 6 over 12. And then we look at the numerators of 7 and 6 and see that 7 is greater than 6. So 7/12 is greater than a half. Number 4, 7/10 and 7/9. We're going to change 7/9 to a decimal. So 9 times 7 is 63. Bring down your 0, goes into it again. So this one's going to keep on going, but 0.77 will be 7/9. So again, if we added a 0 to the 7/10, it'd be 0.70 and 0.77. So 77 hundredths would be greater than 7/10. So 7/10 is less than 7/9 for number 4. Number 5, we have a half, 2/3, 1/4, and 5/6. Looking at the denominators, we can tell that the greatest common factor would be 12. So I'm going to change a half to 6/12, 2/3 to 8/12, 1/4 to 3/12, and 5/6 to 10/12. So from least to greatest, the smallest one would be 3/12, which in its original form would be 1/4. The next smallest one would be 6/12, which was a half to begin with. Then 8/12, which was 2/3, followed by, this should be 10/12, which was 5/6. So that is your answer for number 5. There's a couple of problems that could have on a worksheet. Number 3, we have 6/8 and 7/12. And we're going to change this to 24 is going to be the greatest common factor. So we're going to do 6 times 3 is 18. 8 times 3 is 24. And 7 times 2 is 14 over 24. So 18/24 is greater than 14/24. So 6/8 is greater than 7/12. Number 5, 3/9 and 1/3. I can change 3 into a 9 by multiplying it by 3, which would give me 3 over 9. And these are going to be equal. I've got number 7, 6/8, greatest common factor here. I've got 24, so 6 times 4. And 5 times 4 is 20. And over here we'd have 21 over 24, multiplying it by 3. So 5/6 is less than 7/8. Number 10, 6/7 and 80%. We're going to change 6/7 to 80%. So it's 6 divided by 7. Eight times 7 is 56. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 into 50 is going to go 7. Now I can go ahead and stop here because I have 857 thousandths, but the 7 tells me to raise the 5 to a 6. So this is going to be 0.86. I'm sorry, 86%. Well, 8.86 and 0.8 or 0.80. So 86 is greater than 80. So 6/7 is greater than 80%.